We're in the last days, man. I truly in my heart believe that. It's written. I could go on with biblical situations and things my grandma told me, but it's about being at peace with myself and making good with the people around me. That was a quote from Kendrick only a few months before he dropped To Pimp a Butterfly. Right at the end of that album, he interviews Tupac, who foretells similar events. It's a pretty grim prediction, but it sets something off in you. And that's exactly what Kendrick's music always does. It's not music that you just passively listen to. At least for me, it always provides something to reflect on. He makes hour-long albums that have the depth of full-length novels. Damn is no different. Whilst on the surface it's Kendrick's Thriller, his most radio-friendly album with songs like Humble and Loyalty, it's also deeply philosophical, covering subjects like inequality, faith, and human mortality. Wow, that sounded pretentious, even for a video essay. Anyway, in Kendrick's own words, the album feels like it's raw and underground, but at the same time it has these ear candy sounds. It's bringing those two worlds together to paint a self-portrait entirely distinct from anything we've heard since. Damn opens with Blood, which I'm not gonna lie, went in one ear and out the other the first few times I listened to this. But as the first, or last song, it's crucial to understanding the album. Kendrick tells the story of him seeing a blind woman pacing up and down the street. She's looking for something, so Kendrick goes over to help her find it. But instead, he gets shot and killed. Importantly, the track ends with a snippet from Fox News, where this line from To Pimp a Butterfly is revisited.
And we hate po-po when the killer's dead in the street.
For sure.
Ah, please. Ugh, I don't like it.
If you put together Kendrick's story, as well as the news sample, you get a clearer picture of what he's trying to communicate. I definitely think the blind woman represents Lady Justice. If you go to a court in basically any country, you'll see her propped up high in the air, representing that no one is above the law. But in this story, Kendrick sees her on the sidewalk, in the streets. By going over and helping, by doing the right thing, Kendrick is punished, or perhaps it's his past mistakes catching up to him. This sets up the main idea of the album, wickedness or weakness. One of the things you instantly notice about Damn is the sheer amount of references to the Bible. Kendrick isn't a stranger to talking about religion at all. I mean, Good Kid opens with a prayer, and on How Much a Dollar Cost, he directly talks to God in human form. It's also pretty heavily implied that the Lucy character Kendrick mentions throughout Butterfly is a representation of the devil. All that said though, Damn takes these religious themes to the next level. Even the title by itself is an allusion to the idea of damnation, a life sentence in hell. The album begins, or ends, with Kendrick's death, because he's wondering if he died tomorrow, would he have been faithful to God? You listen to DNA, it's Kendrick listing off all the elements that make him who he is. I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got dark, I got evil that rot inside my DNA. Even if Kendrick's life has been a net positive for the world, he fears that his personal failings could still put him in hell. Towards the end of the song, he makes his first prediction of the apocalypse on the album.
These are the times, level number 9, look up in the sky, tennis on the way, tennis on the way, tennis on the way.
Basically, he's talking about the 10 plagues of Egypt. But when Kendrick says 10 is on the way, he has 10 bars left in the verse. So I think it's really a metaphor for him straight up devastating his competition as a rapper. Kendrick sounds like a monster on this song. He actually recorded the second verse a cappella and had the whole gimme some ganja beat constructed around it. So it's curious that all of that bragging is stripped away on the next song, Yeah. Especially across the first half of Damn, there's this palpable feeling that Kendrick is alternating between two distinct sides of himself. On songs like Yeah and Feel, the beats are much more understated, and Kendrick's lyrics are noticeably more self-reflective. Whereas on songs like DNA and Element, the production is really in your face, and we hear a cockier side of Kendrick. On top of that, tracks like Humble and Pride, or Love and Lust, are literally opposites of each other. He's wrestling with these two sides of himself. I would say Damn is less of a cohesive narrative story like Good Kid and Butterfly, but more a collection of individual stories covering different aspects of Kendrick's life. Upon re-listening to the album, the line that stuck out the most to me was, I know he walks the earth, but it's money to get, bitches to hit, yeah. Kendrick wants to follow God, but his reality makes it hard for him to remain faithful at all times. This connects to the is it wickedness or is it weakness idea. Kendrick feels like he has two choices, live for God and be weak, or live for himself and be wicked. So I think the question that DAMN asks us is, how do you stay faithful to God or to your beliefs when your back is up against the wall? There's bars all through Kendrick's music that hint or outright admit that he killed someone when he was growing up in Compton. Regardless of whether he did it or not, there's clearly a lot of guilt that burdens Kendrick, which he's trying to deal with. When shit hits the fan, is you still a fan?
These are my experiences. When I say gangbang and make me kill a blacker than me, this is my life that I'm talking about. I'm not saying you might not even be from the streets. It's for myself. This is therapeutic for myself because I still feel that urge and I still feel that anger and that hatred for this man next door because I gotta get a call knowing that somebody around the corner done did this to my partner. I still feel that. I still feel that hatred. I still feel that ill will to want it to do something.
The word Yah is Hebrew for the real name of God and was used by the ancient Israelites. So in the hook, when Kendrick says radars is buzzing, he's saying that he's constantly aware of God when he's making decisions now. Not only does Element have one of the coolest hooks ever, it also has one of my favorite music videos. Kendrick used these photographs by Gordon Parks and recreated them in slow motion. It creates this effect of like you're looking at a moving painting, and the abrasive imagery adds to that sense of urgency on DAMN. Even though the song is mainly just Kendrick flexing on other rappers, it introduces the idea of damned if I do, damned if I don't, which pops up a lot on the album. Kendrick constantly feels caught between two options, both having equally harsh consequences. You can view it as a metaphor for political elections, or just the illusion of choice in modern culture. In many ways, DAMN is a direct continuation of the ideas set up in To Pimp a Butterfly. On Feel, Kendrick brings up the Tupac interview from Mortal Man.
I feel like there's gotta be the feeling where Pac was. The feeling of an apocalypse happening, but nothing is awkward.
This album is over 5 years old, and that bar feels more relevant than ever now. The pandemic, the war in Ukraine, inflation. As an individual, you feel powerless. And I think that's what Kendrick is tapping into on his albums. He's this world famous artist, but at the end of the day, he's limited. He can't be our savior. Kendrick also considers the apocalypse on a personal level. People's worlds end every day. Losing your job, getting divorced, going to jail, a family member dying. It's fucked up, but for some, the idea of a Judgment Day type scenario is actually kind of refreshing because it means an end to their problems here on Earth. The thing is though, Kendrick isn't a nihilist. His message is about how you can't change the world until you first take responsibility for yourself. To Pimp a Butterfly is all about, okay, you've got all this influence and money, are you going to use it for selfish reasons?
Now we see we can't control what's going on out there. You know, it's a whole nother power that be. So what we can do now, we can start coming together and figuring out our own problems and our own solutions, you know? And I think I know this is what this album reflects.
It's actually pretty mind-blowing when you realize that Loyalty uses a reverse sample of Bruno Mars's 24 Karat Magic. For so long I thought it was just Rihanna's vocals played backwards, but nup. What's even crazier is the beat was made off the cuff. The fact that it plays into the backward themes of DAMN was pure coincidence. I like how Kendrick and Rihanna contrast each other on the song. Kendrick raps about being loyal to material things like money and weed, whereas Rihanna brings up being loyal to your family and yourself. No matter what, everyone is loyal to something. Even if you care about nothing, you're loyal to caring about nothing. You can't escape it. I said in my Steve Lacy video that I think Pride is the best song on DAMN. And yeah, those guitar chords under Kendrick's poetry make for something really special. Kendrick raps with an almost monotone voice on the song. He just sounds like he's down. That's part of what makes DAMN feel so unique. On nearly every track, Kendrick uses his voice in a new way to express the concept of the song. On Pride, he asks himself, happiness or flashiness? Which one would he choose? He's painting a picture of this cold and indifferent side of himself. I think what makes the song so relatable is Kendrick is talking about struggling with connecting on an emotional level. The song is clearly penned to his wife. There's this one line where he's like, last time I ain't give a fuck, I still feel the same now. Along with lust, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, and the opposite of humility. Kendrick considers that whilst holding on to pride is granted him material success, it's made him blunt to the things that would make him truly fulfilled. By the end of the song, he's unsure if he would choose faith over riches, and kinda just accepts that he's always gonna be imperfect. The song doesn't have some preachy message or anything, It's just a reflection of Kendrick's raw feelings. It kinda goes without saying, but the music video for Humble is something else. I actually think it makes the song significantly better. Personally, listening to the song by itself is still good, but it just doesn't hit the same. Those chaotic images and the way it's edited together, it really communicates the message of the track. It's also a clever song concept, because Kendrick is basically flexing about being humble. It's a weird contrast. Between this, Element, and the other videos in the rollout, Damn might just have the best visuals for an album ever. If not, it's definitely up there. Similar to Loyalty, the beat for Lust has this reverse sound, with the drums being played backwards. I think this is supposed to reflect how morality has become backwards. I also think the reverse sounds and how you can play the album back to front adds to the apocalyptic themes. In the biblical description of the apocalypse, wrong things are right, like say a city covered in fish. Kendrick goes into this on Untitled 1 from Untitled Unmastered.
Atheist for suicide, planes falling out the sky, trains jumping off the track, mothers yelling he's alive.
Back to Lust, the reversed effect gives the song a sinister edge. It feels off. In the first verse, Kendrick raps the daily routines of a man and woman who are consumed by lust.
Wake up in the morning, thinking about money, kick your feet up. Watch you a comedy, take a shit and roll some weed up.
Kendrick ends the verse with, "It's whatever, just make it count." He's filled with apathy. He seemingly doesn't care. I think this links back to the whatever happens on Earth, stays on Earth idea. Except it's much more cynical on this song. Kendrick is basically saying, be lustful, because tomorrow isn't promised. In the second verse, he reflects on his own lustful actions whilst on tour. He hints at waking up after indulging in casual sex, with his feelings dead. Kendrick also mentions losing a chain worth $100K, but it doesn't really bother him. It's disposable. Even though Kendrick is a celebrity, he's still stuck in a cycle like the rest of us. The money and clout has only inflated his problems. He then goes on to describe the feeling he felt when Trump won the election. Kendrick mentions all the protests that happened afterwards, but ends the verse saying, times pass and things change, reverting back to our daily programs, stuck in our ways. Damn only came out a few months after Trump became president, but Kendrick was already ahead of the curve. Most of the media treated Trump as a one-off, rather than a symptom of a much greater and cyclical problem. Once again, Kendrick is torn by these two sides of himself. It was always me versus the world, until I found it was me versus me. On the other hand, Love is one of the few Kendrick songs where I think his lyrics are more in support of the beat rather than the other way around. That's not a criticism though, because overall, Damn is trying to capture the complexities and contradictions of Kendrick's life. Having more emphasis on the melody suits a song that's about his feelings of love.
And that's the yin and the yang, you know. You can't have love, you know, without, you know, your pride affecting it, you know, without having to take your ego out the situation, you know, throwing your humble, the idea of that, you know, around, you know, so.
XXX is also one of my favorite songs on the album. I'd say it's right below Pride. On the second verse, Kendrick talks about a friend whose son was killed because of insufficient funds. He mentions that this friend was shocked and confused by what God had done to him. Kendrick continues to rap about trying to find closure, but still not having the answers. How do you hold on to faith when something so tragic happens? Damn actively engages with questions like that, and forces you to come to your own conclusions. Kendrick's response is, if somebody kill my son, that means somebody getting killed. Again, coming back to the wickedness or weakness question. It's like he's trapped in this cycle, the systemic problem. So naturally, in the third verse, Kendrick raps about the deeply rooted corruption in America.
You set us up, then roll the dice, then bet us up. You overnight the big rifles, then tell Fox to be scared of us.
This also connects back to those themes established in Blood, that justice isn't impartial in the streets. On Fear, Kendrick raps about his experiences with fear at ages 7, 17, and 27. The album dropped in 2017, you get the point. It's considered God's number, because there's 7 days in the week. Particularly towards the end of the song, Kendrick grapples with his own fear of God. At 27, he was paranoid that all of his success was God playing a joke on him, and he would somehow lose all of it, and have to return to that fear he experienced at those younger ages. Overall, the song captures a feeling of utter pain. Kendrick is rapping about the survival instincts he had to adopt growing up in Compton that have carried over into his adult life. The beat technically uses a soul sample, but there's nothing soulful about it. Early on, you hear a prayer to God with the words,
Earth is no more, won't you burn this motherfucker?
This fear flips on the next song, God, where Kendrick embraces his spirituality, as well as his divine presence in the rap game.
I always felt like God used me as a vessel, period. Whether to show my flaws, whether to show my intellect, to show my pain, to show my hurt, to share my stories, to share his message, all across the board. You know, that's me personally. That's always been a vessel. You know, I could say the nastiest thing on record, but I still feel like that's a vessel. You need to hear that because I can't sugarcoat the reality of what's going on out here. I can't sugarcoat the reality of my imperfections, period.
If you listen to Damn in reverse, that's starting with Duckworth and ending with blood, it begins with the life being saved and ends with the life being taken. Of course, on Duckworth, Kendrick tells the story of how his label manager and mentor, Top Dog, almost killed his dad at a KFC years before they met.
Every time they come around each other, my pops and Top Dog, it's mind-blowing because they have to bring it up. They just sit and just look at each other. It's a trip. Whoever knew that this little kid that was in the back store while you was flipping grease and chicken wings, 20 years later, you know, he'll be sitting in the same studio, you know, and it always goes around to the fact that the point is, okay, what if, you know, he did take my father's life?
Oh,
I'd
my
have been
God.
another, you know, I probably wouldn't be in the studio. I wouldn't be right here with y'all right now. I'd be messed up because it's a psychological thing when you don't have a father at home, especially growing up in the environment we come from.
But
Oh,
especially, you know, reading, you know, how you had a conversion later on and became more spiritual. With the life going like this, you can see how you would become spiritual because these are the kind of things that usually go the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely. I can't take that for granted.
Duckworth plays into the wickedness or weakness themes, because if Top Dog had chosen to be wicked, the cycle would have continued, and Kendrick might never have been the artist we know him as today. It's a beautiful way to end the album, and it's really a tribute to how fragile life is, but also how special it can be. Whereas if you listen to the album in backwards order, the last thing we hear is that Fox News snippet. There's nothing epic about it whatsoever. I think overall the album is about how you can't escape death. It's all over the album. Love's gonna get you killed, but pride's gonna be the death of you. You hear the same gunshot from Blood right before the whole album is reversed, leading back to So I Was Taking a Walk the Other Day. It's interesting that Kendrick words it that way, before we hear the gunshot that kills him. It's almost like he's narrating from the afterlife. You could view Damn as Kendrick's life flashing before his eyes, right after he's shot. Or you could view the album as a sort of daydream from Kendrick, and him getting shot is only him thinking through that scenario. Whatever it may be, Kendrick is constantly thinking about the legacy he's leaving behind across these 14 songs. Will he choose wickedness or weakness? For an album that talks so much about morality and ideas of heaven and hell, it's interesting that what happens on Earth stays on Earth is heard so many times throughout. In fact, it was actually the original title. I think there's two ways to view this. On the one hand, you could interpret it to mean do whatever you want, because there's no consequences in the afterlife. But on the other hand, it could mean that your choices do matter, because their consequences will exist long after you leave the earth. No matter what, Kendrick will die one day, like the rest of us. But by showing his dad mercy, Top Dog indirectly gave Kendrick the chance to make a difference in his time on Earth. Wrapped in this story about death, the album captures these contradictory but universal aspects of the human experience: love, fear, lust, pride, and ultimately it asks, what will you do with your time here? Alright, I'm done with the Damn video. Not going to be needing this anymore. Anyways, I'm excited to hear what you guys think, because I feel like Damn is an album that really lends itself to a lot of different theories on what it means. So just let me know. Anyways, Mr. Morale and the Big Step is next, and have a good one.